This is Cooper with Hedera Hashgraph. He's going to go through really your developer's guide to their entire system. So take it away.
Yeah, hi everyone. Very happy to be here today. Couldn't be more excited to be a part of ETHDenver and show you how to get started on Hedera. I'll probably start by sharing my screen a little bit. Awesome. Hopefully everyone can see this. John or anyone, please yell at me if not. Okay, cool. So I have a few slides, and then I'm going to walk you through how to create your account on Hedera's testnet, how you can actually start setting up your environment and writing transactions against our testnet environment. So it should be really fun, but this is just the developer's guide to Hedera. Once again, I'm Cooper. I'm a developer evangelist there, and you can find me on Twitter at Cooper_Kunz. For those that don't know, this is how Hedera's kind of architecture looks. At the very bottom of the technology stack, you have that Hashgraph consensus algorithm. That's something super, super unique to Hedera. It's really interesting technology and a little bit out of the scope for this workshop. But if you're curious, I highly recommend looking into it either with one of our white papers or on YouTube. On top of the Hashgraph consensus algorithm, we have our own version of our native cryptocurrency called HBAR. And we have two other primary network services. So one of them is the consensus service, which is a really cool ordering mechanism for public and private blockchains, whether you're running Hyperledger Fabric or a fork of Ethereum. The consensus service is a really interesting API. But what we're mostly going to talk today about is actually the service on the right, the Hedera token service, which is the newest product offering for Hedera. And it is one of the easiest ways in the industry to mint and administer different types of tokens, whether they're fungible or non-fungible. And there's a lot of really interesting implications of this. For example, because it inherits Hashgraph speed, you can actually run these tokens at tens of thousands of transactions a second for just a few fractions of a penny. It's 0.001 cents right now to send any of these tokens. And so, yeah, just to kind of give you the context of the Hedera token service, like I said, it's really, really scalable. It's super fast. You get actual proven finality within 3 seconds. This isn't like a layer 2 or a side chain where you have to wait for it to eventually settle back onto the main chain. It is operating at the same security model as our layer 1. Again, it's native. It doesn't have a second layer solution. There's no side chain. There's no payment channels. Which is really nice. If you're into different types of more regulated industries, maybe you're doing security offerings, being able to actually do KYC, account management, and being able to freeze or wipe people's accounts could be super, super important. All of those compliance features are totally optional though. So no worries there if you're like, I don't want to require any KYC and verification on my account. It is entirely up to you as the developer. We mostly just give you the options. And similarly to the rest of Hedera, the token service and all the tokens issued on it are subject to the same kind of enterprise governance model that we have, where the fee schedule, our different API features are all kind of determined by the Hedera Governing Council. If you're not familiar with the Hedera Governing Council, hedera.com/council should probably tell you everything that you need to know. And so that was kind of the end of me setting the stage. Just kind of wanted to remind people who aren't familiar what Hashgraph is and what kind of our ecosystem or tech stack looks like. The rest of this is going to be showing you how you can create your own testnet account and set up your environment, maybe even if we have enough time to try out a demo application. But so these are all of the resources that you're going to need today. Portal.hedera.com is the easiest way to get a testnet account. Hedera has language support in JavaScript, Java, Go, .NET, and maybe even a few others. But today's tutorial and workshop is going to be in JavaScript. If you have questions about the other SDKs or APIs that we have, please feel free to reach out. They're very similar in syntax and implementation. So if you can follow along in JavaScript, I'm sure that you can follow along in any of those other languages. We also have a really great demo application for the Hedera token service and a variety of other demo applications. Hopefully we'll have enough time to show you how you can set that up and what that looks like. But if not, please check out our GitHub. And then we also have a very active Discord specifically related to Hedera. So it's hedera.com/Discord. Please feel free to join that and ask us any questions that we have. We also have our own channel in the Ethereum Denver Discord, of course, and you can ask us questions there as well. So I will stop sharing my screen here and open up a few of the resources that we're going to be using today. And once I have them open, I will start sharing my screen again. For anyone who's following along or hoping to follow along, you could go to portal.hedera.com and register there. It should just take a few seconds, and that's actually what I'm doing right now in the background. All right, hopefully people can see this.
Yep.
Awesome, I appreciate it. So once you are signed into our portal, you should be able to see a screen identical to what you're seeing right here. Again, it's just portal.hedera.com. And you have a drop down here to switch between any of the networks that Hedera supports. So our testnet is obviously where you're going to be doing most of your development. If you want access to like the latest features, we have continuous deployment set up to PreviewNet, where every time that we make changes, it'll go live on that network. And then mainnet's obviously where all the fun stuff happens. And when you're ready to go to production, you can toggle between these. Because this is just the test network, it'll just display your account ID, your public and private key here. So this is actually all that you need after you have signed up to actually start setting up your development environment and writing transactions. For those that are obviously familiar with Ethereum's test network process, any account on the testnet for Hedera that is created through this portal will automatically be funded with 10,000 HBAR, our native cryptocurrency, and topped up every 24 hours. So you don't need to go request faucet funds or things like that. If you signed up through here, it'll just continuously replenish and kind of top you up and make sure that you never run out of tokens. So what I'm going to do next is pull open a JavaScript development environment. And I will start from scratch here. Hopefully people can still see my screen.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate the godlike voice confirming that I'm not crazy here. All right, so what I'm going to do first is just create a new file, a new folder that'll house our project today. For those that program in JavaScript and Node, this is pretty common stuff, but I'll make a directory. We'll call it ETHDenver Hedera Demo, and we'll move into that. Also, maybe make this a little bit bigger just so that people can actually see. So within ETHDenver Hedera Demo, there's nothing in it. So we'll use npm init to create a new node project. And in this case, since it's just a live demo here, I don't really care about what the defaults are. So I'm just going to push enter for all of these. Obviously, you can populate this with details related to your project. But now that this is okay, we should have a new npm file or a package JSON file in our new folder. So I will go and open that up. ETHDenver Hedera Demo. And you can see that we have a new package JSON here that is set up and configured to run in this folder. So I'll open another terminal, and you can see that it obviously dumps me back into that folder that we just created. And if you type ls, it'll give you your package JSON. All right, so now we have a new node project. We need to install two dependencies for what we're trying to do. The first of which is .env. This is just one of the default ways to manage your environment variables in Node. You can use different things like npm and env and any type of environment tools that you wish to use. So that's kind of like an optional dependency, but just makes it a little bit easier. The other thing that we need to install is the Hashgraph SDK. And what we want to do is install this at a version greater than 2. So npm install with I, and it's at hashgraph/SDK. And we want to be running anything above version 2 of the SDK. So we'll do at greater than 2. And that should install all of the Hashgraph dependencies and specific SDK code that we need to run our tutorials here. And you can see in our list of dependencies, we have version 2.0.16 and .env. Cool. And you can see our package JSON has all of our dependencies and the Hashgraph SDKs over here. So next, we're going to create a new .env file that'll just manage our account credentials. So this will take my account ID. It'll take my private key. And you can name these whatever you want as long as they're unique strings. But what I'm going to do next is I'll take my account ID public private key from the Hedera portal, and I will paste those into here in plain text, not in parentheses or anything like that. So for my account, I'll just type that in so you get kind of a sense of what it'll look like, and then public private key. I'll stop sharing for a second and copy and paste that information in. At the end of the day, Hedera also supports really nice and easy key rotation, different things like that. So if you do end up exposing your testnet keys, not the end of the world. You can just rotate them before hopefully someone steals your fake cryptocurrency. Cool. And so I will come back and share my screen again. And hopefully people can see this. I assume they can.
Got it.
Awesome. This confirmation is great. I wish they had that on all the live coding and live demos that I did. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, great. So now we have our entire environment set up. We have all of our packages. We have all of our dependencies. We have our environment variables with our private public keys and our account ID. So what we're going to do next is just create an index.js file. And so within that index.js file, we're going to do all of our coding for this kind of tutorial. Within here, the first thing that we're going to do is not request animation frame, but require .env and require it to be configured. By default, it'll just look for any file titled .env within this folder, and it'll give you access to all of those variables. After that, we're going to import specific modules or specific parts of Hedera's SDK. Specifically, you need a client connection. You're going to need to import an account ID type, a private key type, and in this case, we're going to start with a token create transaction. These are just kind of the first few APIs or types in Hedera that we're going to implement. We'll add, some more as we go. And then require from the hashgraph SDK. Cool. And so again, your client connection is just your connection to to the testnet. Your account ID and private key will take these strings from your environment and populate them as a specific type. And a token create transaction will be how we actually create a new token on the Hedera token service. So let's start implementing some of these APIs now. We'll just call, we'll just write a function. I don't know why it's doing that. So we have an asynchronous function, just calling it main, kind of like Java does. And the first thing that we're going to do is configure our client. So we'll take our operator ID is a account ID from string. And where we're getting that string from is our process.env file. And within our .env file, we named it account ID. So we can grab that from there. And we're going to do the same thing with our operator key. So private key from string. And finally, we can get our client, which is a client for the testnet. And then set operator. We're going to pass in our operator ID and our operator key. So hopefully this is somewhat easy to follow along. We're creating a specific type for our account, specific type for our private key. and basically saying, Hedera, we want to create a connection to the test network with this account ID and this key. From there, we should have kind of all the client connection and configuration that we need. Hedera will basically do everything else behind the scenes within our SDK. So I think the first thing that we can do here is just create a new token with HTS or the Hedera token service. And how this works is Hedera follows a transactional model where you create a transaction, populate the details from the API, send that to the network. The network will come back with a response code, whether or not it was successful or failed. And from there, you can determine if you might need to resubmit the transaction, if you need a higher fee payment, something like that. And then you can query and get the receipt of that transaction to confirm its status. So we'll start by writing a token create transaction, and then maybe after that, we'll do an account balance query so you can actually see how you would check if those tokens made it into a specific account. So this is a create token transaction, and all you do is write await because it's an asynchronous call to the Hedera network, and it's a new object, so it's a new token create transaction. And we're going to start setting kind of the API parameters that we want for our token. So set token name. In this case, I'm just going to throw out like wrapped ETH. If you wanted to create a version of Ethereum on Hedera that you wanted to use for micropayments, for example, or any other tokens on Hedera or tokens on Ethereum that you'd like to bring to Hedera. I'll also set the token symbol here. Do wrapped ETH. And because this is going to be a lot of fields, I might break it onto another line just to make it a little easier to read. It doesn't change anything about how it works. You can also set the decimals. In this case, I'm just going to set it to 10. And set initial supply. This is a kind of funny one because we can have a fixed supply. We can have a dynamic supply. It's up to us when we create the tokens. In this case, I'll just set 1,000. I'll change the decimals to 1 because I'm not actually going to need that much space or that much memory, and no one's going to use these anyways. And then the final thing is that when you create these tokens, you have to define a treasury account, whether this is your account or a consortium account that's managed by a threshold key. You have to say, you know, Hedera, I want to create these tokens and I want them to end up here. And so in this case, I'm just going to put them in my operator ID. So that's in my personal testnet account. So I have full control over these tokens after I create them. And finally, you're just going to execute this transaction with your client. And what that says is I want to create a transaction ID. I want to pay the fees with this transaction out of my account balance. And I want to sign this transaction with my private key. So this is great. This should be everything that we need here. This is kind of like the minimum parameters for the token create API. You can do a lot of different things like add an admin key, add some compliance features, but those are all optional. So what we're going to do next is get the create transaction receipt. So this is after Hedera has reached consensus and determined if this person has enough funds in their account or whatever's going on. And again, it's an asynchronous function. From the token transaction, you can get the receipt. Again, you have to execute that with your client. And if this transaction was successful, it should return us a token ID, which is a unique identification for these tokens that we just created. So I'll just say new token ID is the create receipt, create transaction receipt. And if it exists, it'll give me the token ID here. Finally, I'm just going to log the receipt and the new token ID because we should probably pause and run this and make sure that all of our code is working. So I'll just say new token ID is our new token ID, and we'll print it out as a string to make it a little bit easier to read. Awesome. So I'm going to zoom back out so we can maybe see all of the code that we have here in one place. Everything looks good to me so far. The only thing I'm noticing is that I actually don't call this main function within my script. But now we should have everything that you need to configure your connection to Hedera and create your first tokens. So this is great. I'm going to use node index.js. We will run this and see if we were successful. Awesome. You can see down here that our new token ID is 0.0.305272. You can notice it's the same format as your account ID. So the 0 is what shard it's in, the next 0 is what realm it's in, and then the last number is your address within that shard and that realm. And so this means that we were able to successfully create our first tokens on Hedera, which is super, super exciting. I think the next thing that could be helpful is to show how queries work. So actually checking the account balance and, how many tokens am I holding? And what that will be is adding a new module from our SDK. It's an account balance query. And we can go down here and we can write this this query just like we did our create token transaction. It's very, very similar in syntax. So we'll say account balance query is awaiting a new account balance query. And again, you just pass in whichever parameters that you would like to populate from the API. So in this case, the account ID that I want to check is my operator ID. And I want to execute that with my client. So again, that'll sign it with my private key and pay any fees that might be associated with this transaction. And I'm just going to log my account balance here just to make sure that it's working. And I know that the wrapped ETH or the tokens that we just created actually ended up in the correct treasury account. So it's an account balance query, and you're searching for the tokens within that query and converting them to a string. And so these two lines, as well as the additional module import, should be everything that we need to do to check which tokens are being held in my operator account. So that's my account that's in my testnet and acting as a treasury. So if I run node index.js, we should see a new token ID, which is great. And we should see all of the tokens in my account balance. And so if I expand this a little bit, you can see one of the token IDs that we just created is this one. Oops, I tried Command F. And you can see, so it's 305272. The last two tokens that are in here, 0.0.32 or 305272. There are 1,000 of that unique token in my account balance. We ran the same script again, which gave us a new token ID. So it ends in a 3. And you can see that that was also successfully added to my account. And I have 1,000 tokens in there as well. So this is really fun. It shows us how we can actually create tokens. We can create different types of tokens. We can easily configure them with Hedera's APIs and pass in, different parameters. This whole demo is 32 lines of code, including white space and some comments there. So within, just a few lines of code, you're able to get onboarded to Hedera, get your environment set up, and do all of those fun things that you might want to do with tokens. I only have 5 minutes left here, so I do want to walk through a few things, other resources or things that we have available for people to use. So in terms of demo applications, if you're looking for like a wallet solution, my HBAR wallet here is a great JavaScript-based wallet. It implements all those same APIs that we just kind of talked about. And it does have support for Hedera token service. So if you're thinking about these APIs and want to see what a wallet looks like, you can do that, or just go straight to myhbarwallet.com and see how that process works. We also have this really great Hedera token service demo application. So this is, if I had a little bit more time, I would probably show how to set this up and run it locally. But it showcases how you can do fungible tokens, non-fungible tokens, and also implement marketplaces. And so matching transactions One of the nice things about Hedera is that we support transfers between all different types of tokens. So any token ID can be atomically swapped for any other token, as well as for HBAR, the native token on Hedera. And so it should just take you a few minutes to set this up. It's pretty easy with Docker or Yarn. So I would check that out as well. And finally, Hedera's documentation website is really, really great. We have a few tutorials and concepts that might be helpful to you. But if you just want to dive straight into kind of the interesting parts, you can go to SDKs and the token service and see everything from transferring to creating tokens, and see one for one the almost exact code that we walked through earlier today. Trying to think if there's any other resources that might be helpful to share with anyone who is watching this either live or recorded. I believe we also have one demo application that already implements a bridge between Hedera and Ethereum. So I'm wondering where that is. It could be this one, or this could be for NFTs. There is a demo application on our GitHub that does showcase how you can implement like a custodial bridge between Hedera and Ethereum. So that's something that's relevant to our challenge. Again, Hedera is giving away $3,000 to the best team that either implements the Hedera token service that we just talked about, uses one of the versions of wrapped HBAR that is available on the Ethereum mainnet or testnet. If you have any details or need the contract address or anything about our wrapped HBAR, please let us know and we can send you that over Discord or email or anything. And then finally, the third kind of option for our challenge is the best usage of interoperability. So anything that connects Hedera to Ethereum in a meaningful way, we're really excited to see what everyone builds. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and just let everyone know that I'm available in Discord for questions. Thanks, everyone.